Yes, hello folks, welcome to the Manchester United Show. I'm on the pitch. I'm your host as always, Phil Brown, and delighted to be joined here with the magnificent Foran, who needs no introduction from me, the magnificent Foran, of course, who provides us with hours and hours of entertainment. Of course, also a big Manchester United fan, and who also has his own podcast. Before we get started, tell me you about your own podcast.
Yes, absolutely, Phil. Delighted to be on. It's been going since April. We've had 10 episodes so far. We're kind of in the process of evolving it in a sense. I suppose better equipment and all of that.
Right.
And we've more guests probably coming up at the start of the Premier League season. So it's kind of stopped the last, say, month or so, but we're going right back into it at the start of September, which would be in around 2 weeks.
Good for you. And how's fatherhood treating you?
Well, before I came on, I said to you, Phil, I've been up since 5:30.
We all know that pain, my mate. We all know that one. It's so yeah, but you wouldn't change it for the world. Let's start out with good news. United fans have been getting anxious to do this window. We've been watching our rivals strengthen. It looks like we're on the verge of announcing Van de Beek for 40 million. First of all, two things. I think it's a great price, and I think it's a great signing. What's your thoughts on
it? Absolute fantastic price for a proven player in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
He's very young. He's versatile. He can play in many positions in the midfield area.
Mm-hmm.
He's a workhorse as well. And it was kind of between him and Jack Grealish, and from what we were hearing, the price that Villa wanted for Jack Grealish was just a bit too exorbitant, and Van de Beek was the right price of 40 million, and also smooth negotiations with Ajax. Van der Sar being the link there, it really helped, and that's quite refreshing because we really did have a headache currently with the proposed Sancho deal. That's a bit of a headache. Mm-hmm. But even with Maguire last year and Wan-Bissaka, those were deals that took months, months to get over the line. It
is because the link more or less came out, I think it was burning about late Friday, and all of a sudden here we are sitting with it more or less done in a couple of days. And that is extremely pleasing. We rarely get that pleasure. But I was looking at, you're quite right, he is versatile in a couple of things. First of all, he very rarely gets injured, which is a positive. He's not someone you need to worry about with an injury record. Dutch players have a good track record of succeeding at Old Trafford. That's encouraging. And if you look down at that Champions League run, he scored against Spurs, he scored against Chelsea, he was influential in that Champions League run. We all talk about how good Ziyech was, but Van de Beek was just as important, if not more important, than what Ziyech was. So, at a brilliant age of 23 to be coming into Manchester United, so very, very exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's very exciting, and I think you talk about Ziyech, and there's a lot of comparisons between Ziyech and Bruno, and I think he's the right kind of player to link up with Bruno as well in that midfield. It's very exciting. It's great to see a young player as well in there,
Yeah, it's great to see a young player as well. And then you start to wonder, okay, if you look at last season, there's no question not buying a midfielder was a massive proponent of what happened the first half of the season, because Pogba gets injured, United have a dearth of quality in there, and they just don't have the quality to play the way Solskjaer wants. Thankfully, United haven't done that this season. They've added 2 midfielders really since last summer. And we no longer are short in there. What do you see being the midfield three? Do you see it being Bruno, Pogba, and Van de Beek playing in a deeper role, or what do you think that'll work out?
Well, I think Van de Beek has kind of been brought in a similar sense to what they could do with Sancho. In kind of, they'll rotate Sancho and Greenwood. They'll probably rotate Van de Beek and Pogba, or Van de Beek and Bruno. There's going to be a lot more games coming up. Obviously, Champions League games. You have to put, the Champions League games that will occur on the Wednesday, and then there'll be league games on a Saturday afternoon. That's what Van de Beek kind of has been brought in for. In terms of he'll be rotated in, but he'll play regularly as well. like you said, it's, Solskjaer has spoken out as well. It's squad depth that we're looking for, and that's exactly what we're getting with Van de Beek. I can't see him playing in the role Matic and Fred occupy. I just don't think it's. I don't think it's suited to him.
I agree.
He's more of an attacking midfielder. Now that being said, he probably could. He could play in that position. But I think that's Matic's position from the start of the season next year. Now, you know how things could easily change.
One of the things that I wonder about, one of the problems United have had in that position is not having a true ball player, because what you see a lot is when it comes out from the defence into that position in midfield, teams target United. You saw it against Southampton, even against Bournemouth and stuff at home, where they were targeting that mid-holding midfielder who starts to connect in midfield. And I just wonder, does Solskjaer look at that and think we need someone with a bit more technical ability in that position that can link? But the problem is, when you've got two attacking midfielders like Pogba and Bruno, you need someone that's very, very good defensively too. And so I think Fred is more of a ball player, but Matic is probably better defensively. So you sacrifice one or the other. Do you think it's a possibility that he's looking at that and saying we need a better ball player in midfield that connects the midfield to the attack?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And a midfielder, like you look at his all-round game. He's all about quick link-up play. His movement off the ball is fantastic as well. So that like he'll be suited to playing in a system like that with Bruno. And he's actually, I was reading up as well, like he passes out to the right wing a lot. A lot of his passes go out there, and that suggests something could happen in a couple of weeks. But yeah, he's that kind of midfielder. He has a bit of technical ability to him, and he's great. He's great in the box as well. I think he's kind of more now. His short passing is a bit more. It's a bit better than his long passing, which I think is something that we have that with Pogba, we have that with Bruno. So I think he's there to kind of do the dirty work as well, which is great.
To me, he's a Manchester United signing, and that's the type of signing I like to see United make. 23-year-old Dutch lad, and coming through at Ajax, technically they'll be flawless, right? And with the reports with having Van der Sar, the likes of Van der Sar there, the scouting reports will be solid on him. They'll know everything about his personality. They'll know everything about his temperament and all the things that are hard to scout with having people on the inside. Another link that emerged over the weekend, which was quite surprising. Imagine this would only happen if someone was to leave, was Thiago. Now, Thiago is a brilliant price. 30 million is a brilliant price. He's a magnificent midfielder, right? And, would be such an asset to Manchester United. But you look at the midfield as it is, you think, surely that wouldn't happen unless somebody leaves. Yeah,
and the player I'm thinking of is probably Fred. If a player like Thiago would come in, but I think United are looking at that kind of going, it's it's eye candy in a sense for them. Oh yeah, I mean, at that price, why not? But I think they're willing to wait for Liverpool to actually maybe. I think they have a 48-hour deadline, both clubs, and it's just Liverpool are very unsure about. I'm surprised they haven't bid for him yet. It's a strange one, especially at that price.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't see it happening though. But I mean, it'd be a real surprise if it did.
I'll be taking over Fred.
Well, yeah, if there has, I've seen a bit of noise about Fred going out on loan, but I don't know. I'd be very happy, Phil. I just think it's fairly unrealistic, and I think it's not a priority for the club at the minute.
I was going to say, when you look at what United's other priorities are, Thiago makes sense if they know someone's leaving. If not, then I think I'm happy with, for the first time in a long time, I must say, I'm happy with the numbers we have in midfield. Let's talk about the other gaping hole in the team on the right hand side. because Mason Greenwood's been magnificent, right? And eventually he's going to be moved inside. But we also have to consider that Igalo is only going to be here for another couple of months. That is something that's going to have to be replaced. We all want Jadon Sancho, right? It's going to cost a lot of money. A lot of that money, Borussia Dortmund went down. If Manchester United had a window of Sancho, Van de Beek, and a centre back, I would have to say that would be a truly unbelievable window. More than what we could have dreamed of. Do you think Jadon Sancho is still a possibility?
Yeah, I think so. I think Dortmund are obviously in it for the long run, and so are United. And I mean, I think, I mean, we have to sell players, because I know United are all about having a very fair kind of net spend every season. So I can see a lot of outgoings. I think Jadon Sancho will happen. It'll probably be a few weeks though. A couple of weeks, could be a month. It could be definitely coming up towards the deadline, maybe a week or two before the October 5th deadline.
If it happens before the deadline, I would take that. I'm not one of these people. It has to happen before the season starts, because United they're going to need him over the long haul, right? So they'll be able to get by the first couple of weeks. If you look at the old window, right? Yeah. Oftentimes the season started whenever the window was still open and deals were happening, and United didn't buy till the last week of the window, and they'd already played 2 or 3 games. Used to happen a lot, right? So it's not an unusual situation. They're not going to get caught out the first 2 weeks of the season of not having him. If it happens where it happens at the end of the window, okay, I'm fine with that. But he would be such an asset. I mean, can you imagine Jadon Sancho in that Manchester United team with Van de Beek and a young centre back? I mean, that is a very, very exciting Manchester United team.
It does. It looks very exciting, and it kind of, being hopeful as I am, it kind of, at the start of the season, it'll put us kind of in that position. Can we challenge for the title? Is this a possibility now? Because Solskjaer's recruitment so far, I think it's been pretty spot on. Compared to Mourinho and Van Gaal. I mean, and we're talking about as well that, the late panic, and it brings me back to 2014. And I mean, I was innocent back then. We all were, and we just got excited at the fact that we brought in Di Maria and Falcao.
I mean, how could you not love that? I know.
That just wasn't the right kind of, that wasn't the right way to do it. But and I think it goes back, and I was thinking about it today. I know they were Van Gaal signings, but I remember Van Gaal saying a few years ago that it's going to take this team 4 or 5 years to really gel together. This is a big project, and everybody was like, "What? No, surely not." And I don't think at the time Woodward and the Glazers really bought into that. And I don't think Van Gaal was the man for it, but he knew what direction the club had to go in, and I think that's what Solskjaer is doing right now. It's a long-term thing. It's kind of it's a case of, patience is a virtue. We'll get the signings in, we'll get the players in, with the right recruitment involved in getting those players in. It's not just the kind of panic splashing on, say, like even Dybala last year. I thought, people getting excited about that, and like, he's clearly not interested. It would have been another Di Maria kind of situation.
I think that's a really, really important point, is that if you look at Solskjaer's recruitment, it's been thought out. It's been okay. How do they fit? The only downside you could say so far to me was we've already covered not getting a midfielder last summer. But he hasn't wasted a single pound of the club's money, right? I still think, I don't care what anyone says, to me, Harry Maguire is still a top defender. And if he's played properly on the right-hand side with a left-footed centre-back, we'll see the best of Harry Maguire. I still think Wan-Bissaka, at the very least, is held his value. He's still a very, very good defender. He started to tire towards the end of the season. Yes, there's parts of his game he needs to improve on. But so does most players his age. They're not the finished article, right? So, and of course, with the other signings that he's pulled off, Dan James, to me, still easily worth what we paid for him, and Bruno Fernandes. is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So he deserves to be trusted in the market for me with United. United should back him because we've never really had this. This is the best United have looked, in my opinion, since Ferguson left.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know we finished on 66 points. I know that Mourinho finished second, but this is a United team that entertains, that excites. It's got young players. It's got, I mean, I know Bruno Fernandes was really, really important, but the emergence of Mason Greenwood is probably as important as Bruno Fernandes.
Huge.
I mean, and Solskjaer deserves huge credit for playing him, developing him, playing and pushing him. What are you expecting from him next season?
Oh, I mean, I'm expecting them to really, blow our minds again, like he did. I think he's just gonna get even better. He's gonna grow. I mean, even watching his all-round game, even as a footballer, he's incredibly intelligent on the ball. He knows to look for a pass. He has so many attributes to his game. And listen, let's not get started when he's in front of goal because it's phenomenal. I've never seen a player at that age. Maybe Rooney. He really reminds me of Rooney. A lot of people say Robbie Fowler as well. Yeah. And Robbie Fowler was younger. He's very exciting, Phil. And I think as well, my only worry and slight issue is because we have to. Sancho is a priority, and I know he's going to fill that position. I don't want us going into the new season without a Sancho, and running Greenwood into the ground.
Right.
He's still very young, so I think rotating him will definitely work. Rotating him with Sancho and Martial, so I think that's where Solskjaer is that's the route he's going to take with Greenwood. But listen, he's a phenomenal player. We have a real gem in our hands. It's one of the most exciting players I've since Rooney. Easily.
Yeah, easily. And I think one of the things that excites me about him, Al, is the things that make him good are not things you can start taking out of it. Like, for example, he's a two-footed player. Right, it's very, very difficult. That's a natural skill. That is something that so few players have. It's not something where he's a goal poacher and you're saying, all right, once you work out his game, you'll be able to nullify him. Right, he is someone that's very, very good at running at you. He's got such a wide variety of skills. And one of the things that if you look at the pace with which Mason Greenwood hits the ball and finishes, that says confidence. Right, most strikers when they get in front of the goal will try to place it because they both place it and hit it with power. It takes enormous confidence, right?
Yeah.
That kid has so much confidence, so much ability, and everything about him, to me, says that's a kid built to last. We always say second season's the hardest, right? But what I see, but I don't believe that, right? I think that that was true maybe 30 years ago, but today, such as the forensic scouting that's done on players, you maybe get away with being an unknown for a couple of weeks, but that's it. And now teams start to take you into consideration. There was no one shocked by Mason Greenwood towards the end of last season. People weren't. Teams were setting up to nullify him. You're quite right in that he's a young player that Solskjaer will know better than anyone whether to rest him or not, when to rest him. So I don't have any concerns, but United definitely need the depth. I know, and Dan James is a good kid, really, really likable lad. To me, what he needs to do is what Adama Traore did, and that build himself up a bit more physically and add a bit more to his game. And maybe a year out on loan wouldn't hurt him. Yeah,
definitely. I think working on his end product would be, definitely suited to him. Because, he has a ton of pace. He could be a problem for defenders, but it's just a case of, simply looking up for that final ball. And he showed shades of that, I think, from around August to November of last year. I mean, his assist for Rashford against Liverpool, and then I think it was the other assist against Norwich. Phenomenal ball to Rashford. So he has that to his game, and then his goals against Southampton and Palace, he can definitely improve. I would say keep him. Don't loan him out. and use him as that kind of player that, you know, if you want to bring him on in the 70th minute, you know, at 1-1, definitely, you know, he'll cause problems to a tired defence.
It causes problems to a tired defence or a defence that sits high, where it gives you space in behind.
Yeah.
What obviously in the first couple of weeks, United played that counter-attacking style. Once teams saw that United were playing that way, you started to sit deep against them, and that caused Donny James problems because he wasn't getting the space in behind anymore. But in games where, you know, your team's chasing the game, maybe you're 1-0 up, you bring them on, and exploit that space in behind. I agree in that. You know, it would be. He's certainly not someone that. Whereas a Jesse Lingard, to me, should be allowed to leave, because to me, Jesse Lingard is a decent squad player, but doesn't get me off my seat whenever I see him coming on. Doesn't frighten the opposition. This is a time when he's got a year left on his contract. Surely he must be one of the ones that United. I mean, don't bring me Areola on, Al, unless you're looking to get moved on.
Yeah, he lacks. I mean, you could see it towards the end of the season. I mean, I know he had a few good games. He got the goal against Leicester, and he scored against Lask. But he's a player when he lacks confidence. He really lacks confidence, and form goes completely out the window. And I mean, he was getting bullied. I think I was watching the Norwich game, the FA Cup quarter-final game, and he was getting bullied off the ball so much. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff he did off the field, I mean, it affected him, and it affected his all-round game. I mean, the clothing launch,
I agree.
The clothing label, all of that. I think he was just on such a high after, you know, that season, the second season under Mourinho, and then the World Cup, and it just kind of, you know, it got to his head a little bit. And then he's had it tough as well in his personal life. So, you know, you have to feel for him. He loves the club. He adores the club. He's been at the club since he was a kid. But it might be the best thing for him to move on. You know, I'd love nothing more to see him flourish at another club abroad. You know.
I completely agree with that. And I think United fans would take some of the blame here, because some of the stuff that was directed at him, quite frankly, was a disgrace.
It was horrible.
Yeah, honestly awful. I mean, I was looking at the guy's Twitter feed, and I felt hard sorry for him. I just looked down and I'm like, Jesus Christ, you still have to remember this guy's a human being, right? Yeah. And regardless of whether he's the worst football you've ever seen in your life, there's a line, right? And people went over it way, way, way too far. And some of the things that were labelled that guy's disgraceful. And I can't imagine how that affected his mental health.
It affected his mental health big time. And when I seen him out of form, it was more of a case. I actually felt really sorry for him.
I did too.
I didn't get frustrated. I was just like, this poor guy has, you know, he has so much going on in his life. You know, I think his mother's really sick, and you know, and then obviously the stuff he did, you know, it may have been a good investment in his head at the time with the whole clothing label thing and the other bits and bobs, but you know, it really did affect his game big time. And I just felt really sorry for him. And social media is, you know what it's like. It's horrible for that kind of stuff. Especially like the recent stuff about Maguire as well. It's just absolutely appalling. It's just, I'm sickened by it. You know, you stick by your players.
Yes. You know? We'll get into Maguire in a minute, but you're quite right about social media. Yeah, I have to say, the vast majority of responses that I get overwhelming, but the negative stuff that exists, if you don't have experience in learning how to understand this is just part of the game, this is part of it, you have to learn to switch off. I mean, you take a look at someone like Greta Thunberg, the abuse that she took. Yeah. And the people the abuse that's on Twitter at times is an absolute disgrace. And the people behind it is just, to me, it's a reflection of their life.
It's a case that they're, you know, it's even myself, you know, you put yourself out there to the public, you know, and it's, you get it. You really do. You get it. And people are so narrow-minded. It's just, it's a horrible thing. And I mean, listen, there's a Twitter account we all know that directs hate at the players especially. And I was happy to see one of the players respond back to that certain account.
Well, listen, on that, right? These log accounts, right? First of all, they do nothing to help the narrative of removing the Glazers, right? All they do is sully the movement, or whatever you want to call it, because then it becomes easy for people to attack it. And
it's comical though. It's comical, Phil, because they direct the hate at Solskjaer. So the hate goes all, during the season, it's all completely directed at Solskjaer when he's not, listen, he's getting the backing now, which is good. But he wasn't getting the backing, not bringing in a midfielder as well. And listen, we know the history of the Glazers and,
Look, when you're that pathological, right, where absolutely and everybody is the enemy if they're not coming out and slaughtering the Glazers, right?
Yeah.
Then you lose credibility because you have no objectivity. The idea that Solskjaer is going to sit in a press conference and slaughter the Glazers is just not realistic. The idea that people who work at the football club, many of them who are on regular wages, trying to feed a family, that they're the enemy is insanity, right?
Yeah.
You can have your issues with the Glazers, and that's fine, and I have them too. But to then to go and attack people who really have nothing to do with it, to me, it obfuscates the issue, and it becomes easy to attack for those who want to attack it. So if you remained focused on, look, if you want to contribute something positive, do it. Put if you want to put a movement together, do it. But if
I was attacked. I was attacked
everyone
because
gets attacked.
I went on MUTV in 2016, and I was called a Glazer employee.
Look, but sitting behind a Twitter account slaughtering people is not activism, right? There's nothing productive to come from that, right? And anybody, I don't tell anyone how to support this football club. It's entirely up to them, right?
Yeah.
And I fully respect that the thing that we love the most watching this football club is very, very hard to give up. It's very hard for me to give up. It's very, very hard for me. And a lot of people feel hopeless, so they end up buying United shirts and everything else because, well, why not, right? Because if I choose not to buy it, it's going to mean nothing. There is no movement. And you could argue that the war's over anyway. It was lost, right? So I respect that. I fully do. For me, I contribute to the Glazers, and so does everyone else who watches it. Right, whether you watch it on TV or whatever, you contribute to them. That's just a fact. Okay, and for me, I accept that. I just go, I'm not going to slaughter anyone else because it's none of my business what other people do with their lives. And for many United fans, look, there is no honest living to be made almost anymore. Right, people are slaughtering people on their iPhones. Right, well, the people who are making your iPhones are throwing themselves off the roofs. Right?
Yeah.
So, do you know what I mean? It's somewhere along the chain of your own income. There's dirty hands on it. Do you know what I mean? So there is no puritanical living to be made anymore. So, yes, I wish we lived in a better world. We wish we lived in a fairer world. I wish these things didn't happen. But just because you happen to work for somebody or you own an iPhone doesn't mean you endorse what Apple do. It doesn't mean any of that, right? If I could find a way of living in a world where I didn't do that, I would do it. So anyway, I just find a lot of those log accounts to be counterproductive. They're entitled to their opinion to say otherwise. But on the Harry Maguire thing, because I want to ask you about this. So we saw a lot of the media proselytizing about behaviour and all this. A lot of these working for newspapers, by the way, that have normalised racism and bigotry and what have you. They tell Harry Maguire how he needs to behave and how he needs to show contrition. Before the full story comes out, we find out Harry Maguire done what many of us would have done in that situation. I would have done exactly the same. I actually felt really sorry for Harry Maguire in that. And you could tell that the stupid statement about I'm Harry Maguire, I play for Manchester, was clearly he didn't say that. What was your opinion on that?
I mean, it's a very dodgy situation. He did, like what any brother, any older brother would do.
Of course.
He defended his little sister, whether it be his little brother, his little sister, whatever. He had every right to do that. And for people, suggest to keep your cool in that situation. How the hell can you keep your cool in a
Absolutely.
situation like that? How? I've heard nothing but good things about Harry Maguire. As a professional and as a lad in general, my heart broke for him in that interview. He
I did
just,
too.
it looks like it's really affected him big time. And that's not good to see. It really isn't. And I think, the media need to calm down as well, with directed hate and racism at certain players as well. It's just, it's not good. And, and I think as well, people were jumping to conclusions about Maguire when they first heard all of this. Strip him of this, strip him of that, sell him. There were some fans on Twitter celebrating the fact that he got arrested and he was guilty. I'll go on a rant about those fans. They're not true fans of this football club, in my opinion. They're the kind of fans that turned on Bruno Fernandes because he had one or two bad games towards the end of the season.
It is. Absolutely, it is. They're infuriating, mate. Absolutely infuriating. For me, footballers are held to an unfair standard anyway, right? And we saw this at the start of the pandemic. They were the one people in the high wage bracket that were asked to make contributions. Mind you, the politicians and their cronies who were on way more money than footballers didn't feel fit to do it the same. But they're always held to this ridiculously high standard, and they're easy targets. And you've been around professional athletes. I've been around professional athletes, right?
Yeah.
When I've been out with footballers, and I've seen some of the abuse that they take from people, from drunken fans and what have you, and what they constantly have to turn a blind eye to was things that are said to their wives, things that are said to their family, and they know that if they react, they're the only ones with anything to lose. The papers will slaughter them, and they'll care nothing for the ridiculous provocation that they constantly face. So, like you, I felt sorry for Harry Maguire. There has to be a point when you're not a Manchester United player, you're a human being. And in a situation where your sister's being attacked or potentially being attacked with something that you don't know what, you're not a Manchester United player, you're a human being. And you're entitled to react the way any single one of us would. Yeah. So, and given everything he said, I believed about being attacked by if I was being attacked by people that were not in police clothing, I would be suspicious too. Who are these people? What's going on? I mean, I have to think he's an idiot. He's Manchester United defender, one of the most popular, one of the most well-known players in the world. I mean, I don't blame him for having that reaction, and I would have done exactly the same. And the idea that he should be stripped of the captaincy is just absolutely absurd. And the idea, by the way, that I wouldn't defend any other Manchester United player in that situation, because some fans have made this scandalous implication. The idea that I wouldn't defend if it was anyone else in that situation who played for Manchester United, or any other human being, by the way,
defend
really
every Man United player. Upon hearing the facts,
of course,
as well. When I heard it at first, I held no anger towards Maguire because it just sounded pretty ridiculous. The more you heard about it and the more kind of information that was coming through, it was more so of a shock. And I think with any other player, it'd be a shock as well for them kind of to react in that way, to hear news like that. And then when you hear more about how he defended his sister, and the pieces really do come together.
Well, let me ask you about a potential centre-back signing to partner Harry Maguire. Because we talked about what we need on the right-hand side. We know what we need. The one question we haven't answered is who would be a suitable centre-back. There seems to be nobody standing out. The minute there's an obvious signing.
Alderweireld.
Who would you go for in that situation?
We're hearing Upamecano.
Yeah, I would class.
I mean, that's the dream. I don't know if it will happen since he just signed a new contract.
But I've heard a clause on it.
There's no clause on it until next summer, I believe. That's what I've heard. next summer the clause is activated, and I think it's like 40 million or something along the lines of that. But I'm hearing, like, I don't really know. I've seen Upamecano. I've watched him in the Bundesliga a few times, and obviously that impressive game against Atletico Madrid, and he looks a real player. I'm not too sure about some of the other links. Badiashile from
Yeah, kid from
Monaco,
Monaco.
and Paul Torres from Villarreal. Either way, I think Upamecano that's the signing. That's the signing you want to make, and that's the kind of player, you know, who playing alongside Maguire, he'd really complement Maguire. You know,
one of the things that I do like about United is they seem to be scouting the right type of player now. They seem to be scouting
100%.
that young, player in the young age bracket. That are Upamecano's perfect to me. I think perfect age bracket. And that's the type of player I want to see United go after. Or the young lad at Monaco that's being scouted properly. So I hope that signing is made out, because we do need and then in terms of players going out, quickly, who do you think we should sell? You think Lingard, Smalling?
Gotta get Smalling. I think will go. And I've listen, I've appreciated Smalling as a defender. I think he's been. I mean, we haven't had many good defenders in the last decade, but I think he's been one of the, one of our more solid centre backs. We obviously had Rio and Vidic the start of the decade, but I've liked Smalling. I liked him in his I liked him under Van Gaal as well, but I think his time is definitely coming to an end, and he's playing really well at Roma. He got into the Serie A Team of the Year, and this is what I'm talking about when we go to Lingard. I think he really would flourish at another team, like Smalling would, and I'm seeing Smalling play so well. I'm delighted for him. You have to be happy for some of these ex-players.
Of course.
Even Lukaku, I know he went out. I know it was a little sour, kind of the way he left it. But his interview, I think a couple of weeks ago, praising the club, praising Solskjaer and the team. I think, that's I had a lot of respect for him after that, and he seems to be playing well under a different system that suits him. I'm thinking Lingard, Pereira, Smalling, Rojo. We got to get rid of Rojo. It's just ridiculous how much that guy is earning, and he's not playing enough. And I think another player who I have a lot of sympathy for, but I just don't think he's good enough for this team now. Phil Jones. Yeah,
I think I would agree with that.
I really feel sorry for him as well, because he's been just the brunt of criticism from the actual Twitter UK account. I don't know if you've seen that tweet a few weeks ago.
What was that?
They tweeted something about Phil
Oh,
Jones.
yes, I did see that. Yeah, which I thought was classless, to be honest.
It was absolutely horrible. I think that lad is he's gone through enough of social media abuse, all of that. I think I remember he came out with a quote saying I think he signed a contract that he'd get kind of an oh my God, I'm lost for words here. What's the game you get when a player comes to the end of their career?
Paper play or
comes to the end of the testimonial.
Oh, testimonial, yeah.
Yeah. And he says,
I know. I heard this comment.
He came out and he says, I think the only people who'd show up would be my mum and dad. And my heart actually broke. It broke for the guy. So like that, like all these outgoings, some of the fans will be happy to see them leave. I'll be happy to see them leave in a sense that I want them to do well at any other club they go to, because, they've been unlucky here, especially Lingard, I really think he's 27. He's still got a few years. I'd look a mid-table club in the Premier League, somewhere in Italy, somewhere in Spain.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd love to see him do well.
Yeah, there's none of the United players I wish ill will on. And
Yeah.
Phil Jones thing is a great point. That comment as well absolutely broke my heart. And I thought to myself, it, people, he's making this much money. Stop defining human beings by how much money they make. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with their happiness. Money buys comfort. It does not buy happiness.
Yeah.
And Phil Jones, it's not his fault that he's injured. It's not his fault that this happens. He would have chosen a completely different life path, career, and it's not his fault. And it must be very, very difficult for the lad mentally to constantly be. He's probably embarrassed about it, right? And I genuinely feel sorry for the lad. And he's never let United down off a pitch. He's never done anything stupid, And to turn around and say, I think the only people turn up. Honestly, human beings need to do better and really think about this and don't be doing the Daily Mail of determining someone's mental health by how much money they make. That has nothing to do with it. Lastly, I want to ask you about Dallo. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm not sure with Dallo. I mean, I've always kind of my opinion of Dallo has been, I don't think he's a right back. He's a right winger. I always thought move him up to the right wing, kind of like a Gareth Bale situation at Spurs when he was playing at left back and they moved him to left wing. I don't know. I'd be sad to see him go. I think there's a lot of potential there. I think his crossing is fantastic. He's a great crosser of the ball and he has a bit of pace about him. I think a factor in Dallo staying could be Bruno Fernandes because they seem to be very close. So you never know. I mean, I'm hearing as well, Ethan Laird will be making that step up to the first team. Ethan Laird and Mengi next season. So he might serve as kind of, he might be competing with Wan-Bissaka for that right back position, and I don't know where Dallo will kind of fit in there. But I think he's a good player. I really do. Defensively, I just think he's a bit off, but going forward, he's brilliant.
I've heard Solskjaer doesn't rate him, which is bizarre to me because when I look at like Fosu Mensah playing ahead of him, I'm like, Dallo's never done anything. I can't remember a really awful game that Dallo's had. I mean, every time he's played, I've been excited about him coming on. He adds something to the game, and it's a bizarre situation to me. I know he's been injured a lot, but like you, Al, I would not like to see him go. Last question, mate. What is realistic? Let's say Solskjaer gets this three. He gets Van de Beek, he gets Sancho, and he gets a centre back. I think this is the season where Solskjaer has to be judged completely. I think there's been mitigation for not judging him completely in other seasons, but this really is the time where you say, all right, you've been given enough tools. Top four should not be in doubt next season. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think going into this season now, it's, can we compete? Yes. Because I remember at the start of the season last year against Chelsea, I was like, yeah, I think we've got top four. Yeah. It was kind of, I just top four was in my mind. Didn't even, nobody thought about the title, even though we battered Chelsea 4-0. Yeah. No, I think definitely it's kind of a question of, let's go for it. See what we can do here. We had an unbelievable from February up to the end of the season. We had a fantastic run, bringing in Bruno Fernandes. We've got this quality now. We've got Sancho. We've got Van de Beek, centre half. There's a bit of squad depth there. Young players coming up, like Mengi, Laird. I think that young lad Hannibal Mabry will feature in a few games as well. So yeah, definitely. I think
we could be seeing.
Let's see if this team can challenge for the title. Let's bloody go for it.
I think we could maybe see some Arno Pujmal as well next season. I know Nick Wood was talking very highly about him. So and then we've got these young Spanish fullbacks coming in, Gerardo and the young lad from Real Madrid. So we're looking forward to seeing them. Good to see United investing in their youth team again. 17-year-olds, they're never far away from the first team if they come in and do well. It's good to see that happening. So always a pleasure, mate. Keep up the fantastic work. Your podcast, your work is absolutely magnificent, mate.
Thank you, bud.
I don't know how many times I've had people and my neighbours never hang on, like, watch this, and it's magnificent, right? Absolutely magnificent. Thank you so much for everything, Al. Absolute pleasure, mate. And take care.
Phil.
See you, pal. Bye.